He froze. It was a pure, primal fear burning in his eyes, a disturbing contrast to the rage twisting his face. Time seemed to stop. The only sounds were the faint sizzle of the burning candles and Jameson's heavy, ragged breaths. His fist, knuckles white from the strain, hung just inches from Tom's face, trembling violently. It wasn't the tremor of a stopped punch, but of a silent, brutal war raging inside him. His whole massive frame was a battlefield, muscles coiled, fighting against some invisible force trying to push him forward. Jameson. Nina's voice was small, shaky with disbelief. Her grocery bag dropped to the floor, an apple rolling out and across the kitchen tiles. The sound was like a crack of thunder, shattering the frozen moment. Jameson flinched hard, as if waking from a nightmare. The rage and fear in his eyes drained away, replaced by a deep, gut-wrenching horror. He looked at his own still, clenched fist hanging in the air as if he didn't recognize it. Then, he snatched it back like he'd been burned, his large body stumbling back a step. He looked at us, at Tom still braced against the counter with his hands up at me, frozen in place, and finally at Nina, her face pale, etched with shock and hurt. "No," he croaked, his voice broken. "Number. I am sorry. I am so sorry." He turned abruptly, and without even grabbing the jacket he'd left on a chair, bolted out the back door. The door slammed shut behind him, rattling the picture frame on the wall. A dead silence filled the kitchen. The candles still burned, their cheerful flames a cruel joke in the icy room. The sweet smell of chocolate was now sickening. "He tried to hit you, Dad," Nina whispered, tears finally welling in her eyes. Tom slowly lowered his hands, his face pale. He took a deep breath, walked over, and blew out the candles on the cake. A thin trail of smoke rose, taking the pretense of celebration with it. "He stopped, Nina," Tom said, his voice gravelly but steady. "He stopped. That wasn't him attacking me. That was him fighting himself. I found my voice and the ability to move, going to my daughter and wrapping an arm around her shaking shoulders." The look on his face, it wasn't all anger, honey. It was mostly fear. "That night," Nina called and texted Jameson relentlessly, but got no response. The phone went straight to voicemail. The three of us sat in the living room, barely speaking, wrapped in a heavy unease. We couldn't reconcile the gentle, kind Jameson we knew with the figure who had transformed into a threat of violence that afternoon, but Tom was right. He had stopped. That one crucial inch said everything. The next day, Sunday, there was still no word from Jameson. As evening fell, the doorbell rang. Nina almost ran to answer it. Jameson was standing there. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, a rough stubble on his jaw, his large frame slumped as if carrying a great weight. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice low, not meeting Nina's eyes. Nina didn't speak, just stepped aside to let him in. We were all in the living room. He walked in but didn't sit, standing in the middle of the room like a prisoner awaiting sentencing. "Mr. Tom, Mrs. Linda," he began, looking at me and my husband, and gave a deep, formal nod. "I am so deeply sorry for what happened yesterday. My behavior was unforgivable, especially towards you, who have been so kind to me." His voice caught. Then he turned to Nina, his eyes full of anguish. "Nina, I am sorry. I scared you. I would never hurt you, never hurt your family. Please believe that. But we don't understand." Nina finally burst out, tears streaming down her face. "Jameson, what happened? Why? It was just a birthday cake. We just wanted to do something nice for you." Jameson closed his eyes, as if the word birthday was a physical knife wound. He took a sharp breath, and when he opened his eyes again, they were bleak. "I know I have to explain," he whispered. If you are still willing to listen." No one spoke. We just waited. He needed to get it out. He slowly sank onto the edge of the sofa, wringing his large hands together, his knuckles turning white again. He started to speak, his voice flat, but layered with a deep, old pain. "I grew up in a small town. My father, he wasn't a good man, alcoholic. But there was one day a year he'd act almost normal, even kind. That was my birthday. He'd get a cake, sing the song, play the part of the proud dad." Jameson's mouth twisted into a bitter smile. "It was an act. It went on for about 8 years, until my 9th birthday." He paused, gathering strength that day. It was the same cake, candles, him singing, smiling. I made a wish, blew out the candles. Then the smile just vanished from his face. He looked at me, his eyes cold, and asked me what I wished for. I was just a kid, naive. I said I wished every birthday could be as happy as that one. He went quiet. Then he stood up and swept the entire cake onto the floor. He grabbed me, dragged me to the basement, and locked me in, he said. Jameson's voice trembled badly. He said, "Let me teach you about the real world. Birthdays are a lie. Happiness is a lie. Wishes are bull. The only real thing is pain. Remember this day," I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. Nina's eyes were filled with tears, no longer of anger but of heartbreak. Tom's expression was grim. "I was in that dark basement all night," Jameson continued, his voice barely audible. "After that, no more birthdays. The next year, he forgot, or didn't care. A few years later, he left for good. But that night, it got stuck in me. Deep. Birthdays, celebrations, the song. They're not happy for me. They're a trap. The fake calm before the storm. The signal that pain and betrayal are coming." He looked up at us, his vulnerability laid bare. "Yesterday, when Mr. Tom started singing, when the candles lit up, I was 9 years old again. I wasn't seeing Mr. Tom's kind face. I was seeing my father's face the moment it changed. I wasn't smelling chocolate. I was smelling the sickly sweet of smashed cake and the damp of that basement. I wasn't hearing a blessing. I was hearing a lie. My body, it just moved. It wasn't aimed at Mr. Tom, I swear. It was aimed at the ghost in my memory, the phantom trying to hurt me again." He looked at Tom, his eyes pleading. "When my fist stopped, it was because I saw the shock and care in your eyes. They weren't my father's eyes. In that split second, I knew the difference between then and now. But I almost..." He couldn't finish. The guilt was crushing him. The living room was silent except for Nina's soft crying. After a long moment, Tom stood up. He didn't say anything, just walked over to Jameson. This 6'4" young man seemed as fragile as a child before him. Tom reached out and didn't pat his shoulder, but instead firmly, gently covered Jameson's still clenched fist with his own hand. "Son," Tom said, his voice steady and strong, "that wasn't your fault. Those words made Jameson's tightly held shoulders finally slump. He bowed his head and tears finally fell silently. Nina moved to sit beside him, taking his other hand. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" she asked softly, her voice thick. I was ashamed," he admitted, "of that past, of this reaction. I thought it was insane, that no one would understand." "We're family, Jameson," I said, my own throat tight. "Family means seeing each other's cracks and scars, and choosing to love them anyway. What you fought yesterday wasn't Tom. It was your own demon, and you won. You stopped. That takes a different kind of strength." Jameson looked up, his gaze moving between the three of us, as if checking if our words were real. The pain and fear on his face began to soften. The guilt was still there, but a light of relief was dawning in his eyes. A few weeks later, Jameson came over for dinner. The atmosphere was much easier. The shadow of that afternoon was still there, but it wasn't so heavy anymore. After the meal, Nina motioned for us to stay in the living room and went into the kitchen. What she brought out wasn't a cake. It was a simple chocolate pudding, with a single colorful biscotti cookie stuck in the top. "This isn't a birthday celebration," Nina said, looking straight at Jameson with a soft, determined smile. "This is for a new tradition. We're calling it Jameson Day. It is to celebrate you being you, to celebrate you facing down a old ghost. To celebrate you being part of this family today, or any day, can be Jameson Day. No set date, no song you have to hear.